Welcome to the video. My name is Şule. I am doing a Ph.D. in architecture at the University of Nottingham in England. I will jointly deliver this presentation with my colleague, Xijing. She is doing a Ph.D. in architecture at the same university. We would like to talk about house museum uniqueness and their supportive way of accessible experiences. Today, we will show you a great musician and composer, Handel's house, is a case place and its inclusive methods to reach blind people. How do they inspire visitors, as well as sharing our observation of the house. This is an ongoing research. We hope to grow the study through your feedback. COVID-related, we could not contact with visitors yet, but it will be our next step after the conference. So let's start to present our work so far. I will begin with an introduction to museum and house museums broadly. The house museum is a distinct category of heritage experience and offers a useful channel to explore the individual life through its intimate box and fulfilled objects. It is an exclusive typology under the museum umbrella. Most of the museums bring pieces of objects to exhibit based on similarities of timeline, story, culture, heritage, etc. However, house museum ideology is on the other way of it. The story is from the location. The place talks about the owner and the life that happened there. Objects are the evidence of the narrative of life. Most of the museum experiences supported by visual objects, video records, artifacts, sculptures, paintings, labels, direction signs, red velvet rope separation, glass box object display. These are typical museum methods. The experience starts from the threshold with full of direction and explanation of the museum in any type of museum. Leaflet, tags, a timeline of the story painted on a wall, etc. are the way of communication by words to visitors. However, they are still visually made up. We are experiencing the space in a natural way to understand it through different sensory modalities. Our perceptions are shaped and help us respond to the world around us. Beyond the domain of purely visual articulation of space, our architecture emphasizes sound as an illumination primarily. However, if museum visitors are blind people, auditory spatial awareness will affect their visiting experience strongly. In object-displayed museums, blind visitors need additional help to understand the environment or imagine the object. General support comes here by providing audio guidance and sometimes 3D models to help to imagine object in a better way. However, this is not fully necessary in house museums because generally objects are a reflection of everydayness. There are ways to give more experience in a house museum environment to visually impaired visitors, such as touching the object. At this point, house museums are stand-up with their embedded stories and already belonging object to space play a key role. A house itself is being, the object waiting to be touched. This is what makes a house museum different from other type of museums. The building, the story of the house, the owner, and the owner lives are the objects to be seen. There are more than 250 historic houses in the UK, but today we will talk about one of the unique places as an encounter of sound and life experience, which is George Frederick Handel, a German composer who is well known by the oratorio of Messiah, and how the house is being inclusive.
Thanks for the introduction from Şule. In this part, I'm going to talk about the methodology. We believe that the most essential and memorable sense may constitute as a basis for understanding spatial feeling in our experience of the building. To investigate the sound interpretation in this selected case study, which is Handel's House Museum, the overall research strategy focuses on we moving in time through a sequence of the space, from the past to the present, from outside to inside. The mixed research methods are used to the sound reflection, including self-observation, timeline mapping, historical research, and video records. The whole journey constitutes the sequence of the experience outside and inside the museum. The second research method supports creating a timeline of the Handel's life and how his house was changed over time. Besides, through a series of comparisons between the two sides, the findings regarding the temporal experience could emerge in terms of the inspiration of the Handel's life as a musician. In the primary research, Handel's house is observed by visiting the space and being aware of the inside and the outside. The aim was just being there to sense the space. Recorded videos and photos of the place interior and the Brook Street in Mayfair, where the museum located in, and also used to understand the changings of the space and the overlapping sounds from the past to the present, from outside to inside. In this stage, I'm going to talk about the past to the present. Let us see the timeline of the Mayfair from the 18th century until now. The street was built in the 18th century for inhabiting by people of quality as a residential properties. At the beginning, 4 of its first inhabitants were tradesmen. However, in the 19th century, a big transformation happened at the beginning of the 19th century. These mixed character houses were converted into the hotels. Until today, none of these properties is still in the full domestic occupation. They are converted into the office, hotels, and clubs. So this is a sound when you live in the domestic occupation. So this is a beautiful bird sound. So when you live in the UK and for the residential property, and also this is a map shows Brook Street in Mayfair. This is a beautiful encounter between the past and now, from domestical to commercial, without time limitation, driven by the capture of the imagination. The encounter between the past and the now is projected on materiality in this building of this street. So this is a sound reflection of the street. And also, this is a diagram to show the behind of the Handel's House Museum, behind of the building, the neighborhood, the sound from the restaurant, and you can listen and to sense the outside of this museum building. And now, this is a timeline created the street changing in the historical context. So I'm going to pass over to the Şule. She will talking about the same timeline, about how the Handel's house converted into the museum building.
Before jumping to talk about the interior, I would like to talk on the same timeline as Ching talked about how the street changed. And the similar changing happened in the building. After Handel passed away, the building had several occupiers. One of them was an art dealer, and at the same time the street being commercial, he redecorated ground floor's window into shopping window. So it was the first touch that we know in the house facade. But luckily, Royal Society of Art recognized Handel lived here, and they decided to take over the place to open their door to public. This is the entrance of the Handel's house. Occupies two floors. Four restored historic rooms include his bedroom and the dining room, in which he often gave informal recitals for friends and neighbors. So the place itself was heard several times Messiah, and all the great songs he composed. Today, I will not give so much detail about the objects or the material or the history of the place. I would like to talk more how the interior support inclusive visiting experience. One of the great methods to learn anything is learning by doing. If you cannot do it, the other way is pretending. So a house museum are following the same logic. If they do not have full of original object, they just pretend how the place was to give the sense of history. So I could say not all the object kept as original, but still the place reflect Handel's life with original wooden floor, staircase, and displaying the original piano. To explore the beauty in a chapter of lifelong journey from past musicians, new generation could inspire from Handel's daily life. It is related to seeing beauty about his everydayness in a house. With that perspective, since 2003, Handel has been building a close relationship with Royal National Institute for Blind People. They inspire young people by showing everydayness of great composer Handel's life. Now, I will play a short video. Let's hear from the place itself.
When we have tours with people who are partially sighted, it's much more hands-on. We're touching things, we have to describe things in a different way. So we'll touch the fabrics, we'll feel the wooden panelling, we'll compare the textures, we'll open and close the shutters at the windows. Some of the rooms in the house that we visit when we're wandering around, probably most importantly is the composition room. It's quite a small space and it could be easily overlooked, but that was the space where Handel wrote a huge amount of his music, including really famous pieces like Messiah.
My name's James Risdon and I am the music officer at the Royal National Institute of Blind People. I work in our music advisory service where we support the music making of blind and partially sighted people. Handel started to lose his sight around 7 or 8 years before he died. He was a very prolific composer all the way through his life, and a large inspiration for him was being able to read the works of other composers and indeed refer back to his previous works. And the onset of his sight loss meant that he was no longer able to do this. It also influenced the kind of work he did, so he wasn't able to compose as much, but he did continue his performing work, and he would improvise, for example, the solo passages of his organ concertos and so on. But it did have a profound impact on his life, certainly. Well, I think one of the reasons I think it's such a relevant partnership between RNIB and Handel House Museum is that now people think of Handel the musician and the composer, not Handel the blind composer. And I think with our partnership and our work, we're allowing participants to come here and concentrate fully on the music and the sounds.
I think some of the things that we've achieved through this partnership is just the continuation. We've been working together for so long now. It's been building and building and getting better every year. To find out more, visit Handel House.
As you already watched in the video, it is more than a visit to a historic house. It is more as walking into musician life. It is an imaginative journey. I will show some photo of the interior, but I will not go for deep of the history or the material background because I hope that you will little bit feel the space and hear the space rather than focusing to seeing. I will give you a few seconds to look at the photos. When I visited this place, I recorded small videos from each room, but I will not play video. I thought that just playing the sound would give you a more similar experience to imagine the place as blind visitors have. If you like, you can close your eyes to listen better and catch the passing time from room to room. Thank you for listening. The red color part in the plan is where I was recording the sound. You can see the Handel's composition room, Handel's music room, and I was walking between these two rooms, including the staircase. So you heard that the wooden floor sound, and people talking and walking the house as well as Handel's song is playing. When we just listen the music and focus on deep, it could take us to another journey. However, in this house, music is the part of Handel's everyday. So as visitor, when we walk in, it is all combined. Through the literature review, we see that blind people experience objects by explanation and touch practices. They imagine what they are holding. This is a practical way to imagine and stronger to create the object in their mind. However, in house museums, if we can say the object is everydayness, the needs of explanation could not be occur. This is a place that everyone, one way or another, familiar to. Uniqueness is not the object here waiting to experience by touching. Uniqueness is the experience to be felt by the visitor. Handel House is a unique museum that achieves to create a spiritual connection. The house brings up the last couple of years from Handel's life he lost his ability to see. In this house, all the wooden floors were kept as it was with creaky noises. Back of the house, the wooden staircase was also protected as the original. Some of the walls reflects how old it is with the original historic wooden structure. In here, creaky noises as a type of sound represent the original historical everydayness from Handel's life, such as stepping on the wooden staircase. At the same time, his music overlays with creaky noises a second layer of sound surround in the whole house. This is a beautiful encounter between the past and now, without time limitation driven by the capture of the imagination. The encounter between the past and now is projected on material in the house museum. Because a house is a one-piece artifact that includes various pieces of furniture, clothes in the cabinet, paintings, hanging on walls, etc. Through the walk into a house museum may not be only with a reason to see objects. The stronger aim could be to feel the lives there, to imagine a lived experience of everyday being familiar to space. In that case, blind, visually impaired person could attach with the embedded story of the place by right being there, supported by material smell, tactile, and hearing sound from the place inside and outside. Blind musicians walk into Handel's house with an imaginative aims that feeling Handel and his everydayness. To experience the space by supporting sound, non-visual methods could give a fruitful imaginative journey. The museum, collaboration with blind people and how they support the producing performance music could teach us there is a very easy and interactive way to make the museum inclusive. By being one piece of artifact, including several pieces from the same narrative, house museums should be discovered more. It may drive us to rethink how to design and create big-scale museums by understanding embedded stories and feeling beauty without seeing. By looking at this case visit, which is Handel's house, we summarize that sound could be thinking as additional layer of the everydayness experience, an encounter of the past and present, a bridge between the owner's life and visitors. Let's think about what we can learn from the House Museum and its embedded characteristic sounds. Thank you for listening.